Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. Got a special episode today. We're diving deep into Titleist. And you know what? It's fitting. This show brought to you by Titleist and the Vokey SM9 wedges. Vokey Design SM9 wedges are a product of superior, handcrafted technology, each one an instrument of creative control, created from the most advanced materials, engineered to deliver ideal flight and spin, with grinds designed to release your best wedge play possible. There are many ways to make a wedge, but only one way to make a Vokey. Titleist Vokey Design SM9 wedges. Superior, handcrafted technology. Find yours at Vokey.com. So go in there, check out the Vokey SM9s, mess around with like the Wedgeworks thing, because that's just an absolute blast. Messing around, building wedges. It's just a whole lot of fun. So anyway, big show today. Today is, of course, launch day for Titleist T Series irons, the brand new T100s, T150s, T200, and T350, along with the U505 and the T200 utility build. So a ton of stuff. I'm super excited. I get to spend a ton of time talking with Josh Talge and Marni Ines. Both those guys, big into Titleist. Marni is huge into the design, engineering, all that. So we're diving deep into every single iron, talking about each one, differences, between last year and this year, and the performance stuff that goes into these new irons. So super excited about that. By the time you're listening to this, I'm either on my way up north or I am already up north, and it is golf time. So playing some golf, and it's going to be a big weekend. I'll let you guys know how I did, but hopefully you guys have a great week. Enjoy the interview here. It's got a ton of information in it, and hopefully get out and play some golf this weekend, and let's get rolling with it. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. As we know, it is a huge week, launch week. We got new product, and every time there's new product in the golf world, I'm excited. And today, I get joined by two very special people. We've got Marni Ines, Josh Talge, both from Titleist. How you guys doing today?
Very good.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. It's a big week. It's kind of launch week for us. This is the first time that consumers have a chance starting Thursday to go and get fit for all the new T Series irons. So you guys have done an amazing job at Golf WRX of showing a lot of pictures of these. We've done a lot of tour stories. The excitement level is definitely there. And now the wait's finally over for everyone. On Thursday you can go into any golf shop and get fit for these products. And I know, Brian, you actually went to one of our favorite places, Carl's Golfland, to do your fitting.
You know it, yeah. I was fortunate enough to go. I think it was right after Rocket Mortgage, or right around that week. I got to go and hit all the new T Series stuff, all the new irons, the utilities. I got to hit it all, and of course, they had a huge setup going there. You guys had, at least 4 or 5 guys fitting a bunch of people, all the gear, all the shafts, everything. It was like a kid in Christmas walking in there, and it was a blast. So it was fun. And if you're somebody listening and fitting wise, you want to go get fit, you want to try these T Series, if you find a Titleist fitting event, go do it, because it's just a blast. And they have so many. There were shafts from Woods. Like, I was looking, of course, I was rooting through the stuff that they brought, and there was stuff the shafts I didn't even know you guys offered, and they had them in their matrix there, and they had different shafts. So it was pretty cool to do. But I had a blast. I hit everything. Even when we kind of narrowed down what I was looking at and what was fitting me the best, we still went off and hit a couple of the other products just to go hit them and try them and see how they worked, and it was awesome. So I've been a guy who, I had the 2019 T100s, I had the 2021 T100s, and now I won't get into yet what I have, but I do have some T Series from this launch. But we've seen you guys have seen so much success on tour in average amateur player bags with the T Series. How hard is it to kind of go from 2 amazing irons, and now, hey, we got to make a third one, and there's probably a lot of tech, a lot of things that go into it, but you don't want to mess up the DNA that's there because it is so good. How difficult is it to kind of create these new products without really taking away what's so good from the previous ones?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a couple of things that we need, right? So we need feedback, for one, and 2, we always have our targets for improving feel and improving the accuracy of irons, because with irons, as we know, We're just trying to hit the same distance every time with each club and have proper gapping throughout the set. Another thing for us as well with irons is that if we can get a little bit more distance and height out of those longest irons, we'll go for that as well. So we have a really clear target, and we have a good network of partners who give us feedback in terms of little things here and there that they would want. And feel was certainly one of the things that we heard a little bit about, especially in the T200 iron case, that if we can make that feel a little bit more like T100, that would be a home run. So those two things mainly.
I think the other one for me, Brian, that stands out is, even though this is our third generation of T Series, we've got two new models this time with T150 and T350. And when you add something that's very different or even slightly different than what we've had in the past, it energizes everything. And so it's restarted these conversations. Even players that had been playing T100 now had an option to, do they move to T150? Is this going to perform a little better for them? We completely changed everything inside of T200, so the shape looked very familiar and the performance was familiar, but boy, the feel was so different. So maybe there's a shift there. And then certainly T350 is unlike any game improvement iron we've ever made. So there's so much excitement to it. Really, the product that we couldn't change dramatically was T100, but I'm so impressed with what Marni and team were able to do with that product, not only from a look standpoint, but really from a feel and a consistency. You know, Marni, as you get into like the grooves and what you did differently on the face treatment to really get that spin window to be really tight. It's really neat when you think, hey, it's third generation. Is it just kind of the same old thing? You've tweaked a little bit. That's not really what we're doing here. This feels like we've perfected where we've gone with these irons. So I'm super excited about it. I think Marni's excited, and obviously, as we said, we want golfers to go try these. So don't take the guys who work for Titleist word for it. Go try them yourself. But that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah, he's right. And we want people to experience the product. It'll speak for itself.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and I think most of the people who listen kind of this show, I mean, that's what they want to do too. I mean, they want to run out, they want to get their hands on these, they want to kind of see the differences between 100, 150, or 100, 150, 200, 350, and just kind of see where those things fit into their game. And like you said, you brought up an interesting point. Little different lineup this year as opposed to the previous years, where we now do have a 150 and a 350. And we no longer see, at least we haven't yet, a 400 or anything like that. What was kind of the idea with the change to the lineup there in terms of these four irons as opposed to the previous setup that you had?
Like, you want to just go through each one? We can start with 100.
Yeah, let's kind of I guess we could just break into.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I guess the philosophy of just kind of moving to these four instead of the previous. If there's any thoughts there, but if it's not that big, then we can just jump into 100 and work our way up, or start at the very top of 350 and work our way down. Either way.
Yeah, certainly. Let's start with 100. Right.
All
so.
right.
100, again, it's our main tour iron, right? So it's the ultimate tour iron for us. It's got DNA tracing all the way back to AP2, and we've really been perfecting this iron since it came on tour in numbers. And like I said earlier, the importance of the feedback, so from our tour reps and tour players, goes straight into the next designs for this product category. And so now with this third generation, feel was one thing where, hey, can we make the feel even better? So there's never going to be a complaint if you can make the feel even better than it was. And there's two things of that being the feel at impact and also the feel through the turf, right? So we made some subtle changes to the sole. So there's a slight change to the trailing edge of the sole of all of our irons, which typically would have what I call a hard chamfer or a grind on the back edge of the iron. Now has a smoother radius on the back of it. And that came from tour feedback. We like to share a story from Aaron Dill where he says that hard edges on soles are kind of like blue cheese, right? You either love them or you hate it. You either love it or you hate it, right? And we don't want anybody hating anything about our clubs, so I said, why not? Why don't we just smooth that out, and that way we just get that little bit more smoother turf interaction, especially as you exit the divot there. There's a lot of changes under the hood too to T100 in terms of how we engineered that forged dual cavity construction. And all that was done to essentially help us get the CG in a better place, especially in those long irons, to get more launch and speed, like I was saying earlier. And also just to keep that level of club head stability that we're used to there in the high MOI, using lots of high density tungsten in both the heel and the toe. You have anything to add, Josh?
I think the only other one, Marni, is you mentioned Aaron Dill and the Vokey team. We borrowed another idea from them. When you kind of look at the way they do spin milled grooves, one of the things that JJ Van Wiesenbeck and our tour teams around the world had asked for was, hey, T100, it's a great product. It's played by more touring professionals than any other iron in the world. But if we could, let's make it even more consistent. And that's where Marni's team went to work, kind of on this face approach.
Right, and thanks for bringing that up. The faces of our irons, right? So we would come in and we would fly cut the face of an iron. It's this giant spinning cutter that comes across in the CNC machine. And in the previous process, it would leave these sort of heavier mill marks on the face that we would then have to come and polish off, right? So, and that would be after, so you'd fly cut the face flat, you'd put the grooves in, and then you'd have to polish these mill marks off afterward. And we asked ourselves, hey, we know we can make the face even more consistent if we could just leave it alone after that fly cut and after we put the grooves in, right? So how do we do that? So we changed the parameters of the milling process so that we got a smoother finish on the face, so that then you could put the grooves in, blast the face, or chrome plate it, then blast it, you're done. Never have to touch the face with the belt again. Now the face is flatter, the groove edges in every iron are now more consistent, and so the consistency of those grooves and that face flatness leads to more consistent spin, more consistent distance is what we're after in an iron.
Yeah. And I think I kind of noticed that, with this, with the 100, even though this isn't what I got fit into, but I did hit a lot of the 100 and against the 150. But the one thing in the 100, at least the brand new one compared to I have, the 2021, and that's the one I was hitting against these, was that, when I didn't hit it dead center, which is more frequent than I care to admit, the numbers in terms of spin didn't kind of vary as much as they did with the previous iron. Like that number kind of stayed a little more flat across all strikes on the face compared to my previous T100s, which and for me these actually went a little bit higher. Again, that can play the shaft and other things in that fitting, but I found these to be really nice, and again, like you said, with the feel, extremely soft. Like I didn't think they could get much softer than last year's. They definitely have a little softer feel than the previous T100.
I like to talk about that too, because a lot of people talk about how material is like the main characteristic in feel. They talk about process and material, but I like to talk a lot about structure and how you design the structure of the head to engineer feel as well. And that plays a huge part in feel that I think doesn't get enough credit. And with this new T Series line, we took a really deep dive in looking at the structure of each of our irons and adjusting it to get us into that preferred zone.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be up there now with, people always say there's certain brands, certain clubs, whatever, that are just, they're the softest, they're the softest. I mean, this has to play in the arena with anything. I mean, if you look at a forged kind of player's cavity, I mean, this thing has to be up there with any of those kind of other, well-known irons that people think are extremely soft. This has to be right with it. But the other thing that's pretty interesting in this, and you kind of touched on it by saying, putting a lot of high-density tungsten into it, it's amazing that a club like this package, this size, something that you see on tour all the time, I mean, is actually pretty forgiving. I mean, yes, you hit it so far off the toe that you're missing the grooves, you're going to see some diminishing distance and things like that, but, just missing a little off the heel, a little off the toe, a little thin, which is a big miss of mine, you still see some really good carry numbers, and really you kind of don't expect it out of something like this, because you expect to be punished a little bit, and you still get away with some shots that aren't hitting the center. It is much more forgiving than it looks.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because it's always fun to let people hit a T100, those people especially who are kind of scared by the profile, because it's a little bit of a smaller head, right? They're used to hitting larger clubs. But when you give them that, it has loft, it has all this forgiveness in it, and all of a sudden they're hitting it up in the air, they're like, wow, I could actually play this iron. I'm like, yeah, if you like the size and the offset, sure, you can play it,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And that was kind of like, when we were doing my fitting, it was one of those, yeah, you probably could play it, but you're a little better fit into something else, but you could get away with it, you could play it, you'd be fine. And on your bad days, you'll probably find a little more help with some other things, but on days when you're hitting, you could definitely play this iron, and trust me, I'm not a great non-handicap, so that is saying a lot when you can kind of play the same iron that you see your favorite tour pros play week in and week out and do the amazing things they can do. But yeah, the 100 is definitely really, really nice, and I think this is the one I kind of expected the least out of, because it just kind of has, on the outside, it doesn't look like it has a ton of tech. It kind of looks just like a Ford player's cavity, and that's it. And it is amazing that you guys have got it to be as playable as it is, even for someone who doesn't have the aspirations of being a scratch player or tour player or something like that.
Yeah, and I think if you look at our line and how it looks in the bag, that's not unintentional in terms of giving you that sleek, clean look, right? Because we could put all sorts of features on the outside of the head to highlight where the tungsten weighting in is and all that, but we don't. The feedback from our players is that they like this type of look, and so we've just continued to refine that look, and bring it now even into the T350 category, right? So,
yeah.
Which I think is going to be huge for us.
Yeah. So no, the 100 is really nice, and then we'll move into, I guess, what is kind of my bread and butter, what I can get into, the 150, which kind of, like name-wise, totally new. I know this, the T100S was super popular the previous gen, but now we've got the T150, and this isn't just a T100 that you bent a little bit strong. It's a totally different head. It's not just a simple VIG. It's a totally different design. What went into making the T150 this year?
Yeah, so I talked about feedback before, again, right? So more feedback came in about T100S, which was the product that was in this category for us before. And that because it was simply the same size and shape as T100, the feedback was, hey, it's a little bit small. Can you give us a little bit more from the address view to give us a more forgiving look? And so what we did was we actually widened the top line a little bit. And we also widened the sole as well to help mitigate that weight that you add when you put it up in the top line, right? So doing those two things gives the overall head a more forgiving look. And then on top of that, we have our muscle channel technology in this iron as well. So that helps this dual forged cavity construction get a little bit more launch and a little bit more speed, where this player is really looking for that extra distance in this iron versus a T100.
What we saw, Brian, was a lot of players that were old AP2 users, right? And they should be, right? It was the top selling iron in Titleist history. So there was a lot of generations of AP2s that were out there that players absolutely loved. And a handful of them said, yeah, I like the numbers I'm getting with T100, but it just looks a little small. Is there something else? And so Marni's team really designed T150 to fall right in between 100 and 200, thus the name T150. So when you look at the top line of those three irons, 100, 150, 200, you'll see it's right in between. If you flip it over and you look at the soles, you'll see the same thing. It's perfectly in between. Now, the reason I didn't say blade length or offset is they're the exact same on all three of those irons. 100, 150, 200, blade length offset's all the same because we believe in being able to blend sets. And we like that tour preferred look of where we're going, even though we want to give you a little bit more help from a launch speed and spin standpoint with 150 and 200.
Yep. And that's that was the big thing. Hitting these and, working with Brett, my Titleist fitter over there that day was, the 100 was great and I could have played it and it was fine, but the distance and the height on this was just a little bit better. And I'm not a guy who carries a ton of speed. As much as I'm a Golf WRXer, I don't have the 130 mile an hour driver swing speed and all that. So I'm always a guy who's looking for nothing crazy, but just a little bit of help with the irons in terms of distance. I love it. And the numbers that I was getting with this were exactly what I was looking for. In terms of, the 7-iron carry and even the short iron, all the carry numbers look good. And it's kind of the perfect I kind of like to use the word cheater iron because it makes a guy like me who's a 9 handicap, I can look at a club that looks like a T100, that has that player's look, gives you a lot of confidence, not a lot of offset, it looks really good. But you know, when I hit it out here on the toe or whatever, I'm not going to get severely punished for it. And playing these the past few weeks, that's the biggest thing I've taken away from the 150 over my previous generation 100s, is that the misses, I can get that ball to the green or maybe just in front, where I maybe was a little bit further back with my previous T100s. Like, this just gives a little more help when you don't have that perfect swing. And, like you said, the size, yes, it's there, but I think unless you're really holding them right side by side, it's not easy to notice the size difference between the two.
Yes. And one other thing I wanted to say about this iron, too, is that, I'm sure you noticed how it feels, right, compared to the T100. Yeah. It's pretty darn close.
Almost exact.
Yeah, and we really closed the gap between the T100S and 100 before, and now 150 versus 100. And we made a couple changes to that dual cavity construction in terms of the face thickness, but also the positioning of that muscle channel up in the upper cavity there. That's actually closer to the face now. So where the lower face thickness was actually a little bit thicker, but by moving that channel up top there closer to the face, we were able to maintain the speed and launch that we get from that feature while improving the feel at the same time.
Yeah, and again, the turf interaction with this one is really good. I'm a guy who has before we started recording, I told you, I get a little over the top, a little steep, and I kind of, smother it a little bit. Even playing soft conditions up here in the Midwest, the turf interaction is really good. I mean, you'd have pretty, average sized divots, at least for me, but the club gets through the ground quickly, and it is really smooth through the turf, which is nice.
Yep.
Because the sole, I mean, even if it is a little bit wider, it's still a narrow, it's not a wide sole iron. Like, this isn't monstrous. You're not going to be looking at something that's got a super wide sole on it, which is nice.
Yeah, this is still a tour played product. Especially in long irons, very popular across our global tours. And you can see why, because it does exactly what you experienced, Brian, which is a little bit more speed, a little bit more height.
Yep.
And all players at some point in their bag need that help. For Max Homa, that starts to happen when he gets to 5 iron and then 4 iron. So he does 5 iron with 200, 4 iron he goes to 150. He needs that to get away from his blades, to give him, be able to really have that playable trajectory that we look for. One of the things that we talk about is, even from a design standpoint, we love the 3 Ds of iron performance and iron fitting. And for us, those 3 Ds are consistent carry distance. You want to make sure that each and every time you're getting your same distance. We talk a lot about flatline ball speeds, making sure that each and every time, let's say you take 10 swings with your 7 iron, we want those ball speeds to be within 1 mile to 2 miles an hour of each other. The tighter we can get them, the better. That way we know we're getting the consistent carry distance. The second D for us is really tight dispersion. How do we get you closer to your target more often, right? And this one's really important. We talk with Marni's team all the time. We're like, if we could, we would love to test all irons on an island green, where left is bad, right's bad, short's bad, long's bad. And if you hit the green and it rolls over, still bad, right? That's the absolute best way to test these things. And that idea of hitting the green and going over, that's actually gets us into our third D, which is angle of descent. How do we get that golf ball coming out of the sky at hopefully 45 degrees or more? And if we can do that, you're going to play your best golf. So we use those 3 Ds of consistent carry distance, really tight dispersion, and steep descent angle. And then we add in this idea of, as you work your way up through your bag, can we have 5 mile an hour ball speed gaps? And that's where, we were just chatting about your bag makeup. You go from 150 and then eventually you make your way up into T200. And that's because we weren't able to get you all 3 Ds without the 5 mile an hour ball speed gaps. So eventually you need something different. And that might be a different chassis, like a different iron head, or it might be a utility iron or a hybrid or a high lofted fairway. There's all these different options we have. And one of the things we're so excited about with this launch is we're making that available to all of our fitting partners as well. So instead of just being fit with a 7 iron, now you've got long irons to work through as well. So you can get a sense for where does your set need to break and change. And then what's kind of your last iron before you make your way into metalwoods. Marni, Iron Man here, is obviously going to play an iron as far as he can through his bag. He will not let the metalwoods team in.
I was like, if you need to play a hybrid, you need to design a better long iron.
I like it because Marni, you and I are exact opposites right there. I play the irons, but I'm gonna put some woods in the bag later on for sure. And then, like you mentioned with the whole line, with combo sets, I think a lot of players, like you mentioned, the 150, the 100, I mean, they look seamless when, if you're going to put a couple 150s in as your, 4, 5, 6 iron maybe, whatever, wherever you kind of need that help, and then be able to transition to the 100, and the look is identical. I mean, really it is. I mean, like you said, the amount of difference in terms of size is just not that noticeable at a dress. I mean, like I said, unless you're maybe sitting right next to each other with 2 irons, that a player's not going to say, oh, I want to transition, but man, this one's really big and it looks really different, or the finish is different. They seamlessly just kind of fit right together for comboing these up whichever way you see fit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm also in the same camp as you. I also play 150, and with people that look at that iron, it is surprising that change to that top line, how many people like just gravitate more towards that product now versus a T100S. So it just says that the feedback was spot on.
Yeah, we just had Tursky was with us just a couple days ago, and he was, I think, really surprised how much he gravitated right to 150, and how it was unbelievable compared to he was playing a different competitive set coming in, and to see the change that we saw for him across all 3 of those Ds we just talked about, dispersion being the tightest one, it was. I mean, he left here very bullish about his game. Have him
share. I think he took a picture of it, maybe. So have him share that with you.
Yeah. No, and that's the interesting thing as well, is you go from a high speed, very talented player. I mean, he's played competitive college D1 golf. I mean, and then you look at a guy like myself who doesn't carry near as much speed as him. I'm like a 9 handicap. He's scratch. We can both kind of find similarities in an iron, even though our games are totally different. But there's still advantages there. It's not, this isn't just for the guy or the player who, wants to have that tour kind of experience club. If you need a little help, you're still going to get it out of the 150, which is nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then, like I said, we move into the 200, which I got to say that, this is one, like you mentioned about the fitting, this was one that it was kind of a talk with Brett and myself about where do we go with the 200, because, hitting 4 irons and 5 irons, we can kind of see, like you said, the speed a little bit drop off, the height kind of falls down a little bit with the 150, and for me, the 200, 4 and 5 iron, that's where they went in, and I can always use a little bit of help with that 4 and 5 iron to make sure that I'm getting those distances that I need to in terms of the gaps. But the 200 before we even hit, I tell you what, it looks it looks really good. I think it's definitely just from a look standpoint an improvement over the previous 200, and I'm not meaning to knock it or anything like that. It was a great iron, but I think like this new version definitely has just a kind of a more proportional look to it, especially at a dress. When you look down toward at it, it doesn't look too long heel to toe, doesn't look too tall. It just looks right. And kind of the minimal amount of offset in this style iron is really appealing to a player like myself.
We kind of call this iron. This is the iron for the greedy golfer, for the guy who wants it all, right? They want it to look like a tour iron. They want it to feel like a tour iron, but they still want that game improvement, forgiveness, and flight. And really, that's where T200 comes in. And for Marni's team, on this one, we were like, hey, we've got a good shape, good size. Let's make it look a little sleeker. Let's clean things up just a little bit. But most importantly, let's change everything inside to improve feel. And so, Marni, I think when we talk about an iron that changed the most, from an inside perspective, if we peeled everything off that and you could really look in there, Marni's team did an amazing job of re-engineering this. And Brian, I hope that you had a chance to hit both current versus new to really see the difference and feel the difference, because that's where it really shines. So, Marni, what'd you do?
Yeah, so I'll try to describe this as best I can without the nice exploded views I'm used to using. But this iron is our multi-material, forged face, hollow, max impact construction. Right? So that's a mouthful. Right?
That's a lot.
I'll unpack that for you, right? So So one, with feel being one of the main priorities for this iron, we took a look at just every aspect of this iron, every component within the iron. So from the face to the body to the muscle plate that's on the back, how the muscle plate is attached to the core polymer placement, location, thickness. So there's a little core on the inside that we call the core for the max impact technology. So where that's placed, it's a little bit more towards the heel. It's a little bit closer to the face, so that core piece has gotten a little bit thinner. How that medallion is attached now is different versus what it was before. Used to be attached with an adhesive, high strength adhesive tape. Now it's using a structural epoxy adhesive to attach it. And again, these things change the resonant frequencies of the overall package individually and the overall package to give us that improved feel. We also developed a software package or tailored a software package for iron feel to help us better predict feel in this line of irons as well. And it was really mainly for this construction that we needed it, because there's so many different materials going on. There's a lot of different constructions that are more difficult to simulate, right? So when you're attaching something with a high strength tape versus attaching it with epoxy versus welding it versus, whatever else you could do if you're using fasteners in some other cases, those attachments and how you simulate those matter, right? How do you characterize those in a computer model so that you get a realistic result in your prediction? And that's kind of what we went through with this line of irons, especially with this construction in particular, to help us engineer better feel into these products.
Yeah, and that was the first thing. The first thing you notice is picking it up, or as it was handed to me. You notice the look and the look, and you mentioned the badge in the back. It definitely, I know. I did a lot of reading online and stuff of the previous T200, and there were a lot of people who weren't as big of a fan of how that badging looked on the previous one. This one here, it's almost seamless. You almost don't even notice that it's there. It just looks like it was just kind of all one piece part of the iron. It definitely has a much more kind of premium high-end look to it than the previous generation, but you're right on the feel. The feel on this was really, really good. When I first hit it, I was really surprised at how soft it was. You could almost kind of feel the ball compress off the face and go. And I didn't feel like you had that as much with the previous T200. But the feel on this and the look, like you said, this is a great iron. I think it's going to fit a wide range of golfers, from really low handicaps up to players who need a lot of help. It's going to fit a big range of players, but it looks great.
Yeah, and again, having PGA Tour at our fingertips for testing, right, and feedback. When we took out the prototypes of this iron and had them hit this product, every single one of them commented on how much better this one feels versus the previous generation. And the previous generation wasn't bad, right? We were still number one utility iron on tour with the previous T200. So it's just a testament to what the team has done with engineering feel into this product.
Well, Marni, speaking of tour feedback, if I might, Brian, just a quick story that Marni and I were together at the Memorial in Dublin, Ohio, and we were out on the range with JJ and team, and they were like, "Hey, Bo Hostler's down here. Let's see if he'll test a new T200." And JJ's like, "It's going to be a little tough because he just switched in to the current T200 last week." He's like, "So you guys go talk to him if you want." And so we approached him, and he said, "Hey," he's like, I love this club. I just got into it last week." And we're like, "What do you love about it?" He's like, "Look at my TrackMan numbers." He's like, "I'm hitting this perfect." And we're like, "Is there anything you changed about it?" And he's like, "Well, if you could make it feel a little softer, that'd be great." And so we handed him this new club built to his spec. He takes one swing with it, and the ball is still in the air. It's perfect. And he comes back, and he gives Marni a big hearty handshake, and he's like, "Good job, Marni." And I wish more than anything I had captured it like on camera. It not only made me laugh, but it was so true of, here's someone, and Bo he was really fun to talk to about his insights on. He'd definitely be a guy you guys should try to get on at some point, because he's got a lot of philosophies and very into his gear. whether it's swing weights, head weights, all sorts of things. But this was really interesting to see how he took one swing and just was like, I'm in. This feels so much better. The numbers look great. I can tell it's going to do everything I need it to, but it feels so much better. So I think that's what golfers are going to recognize when they go try this. We think we've got probably best in class feel in this category.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, the one of the things that, you know, not only does it look and feel good, but it is easy to hit. I mean, the shot that kind of stands out to me, which is funny with that 5-iron, was I was playing early morning, you know, out there, and I had a, you know, 5-iron shot, which for me is like 180 yards, 185 the most. And I remember sitting in the fairway, having a swing that I just hated myself for putting on the ball. I probably, the contact was probably out here where the grooves start to end. And it was a ball that still got up higher than I thought it would and still rolled up to the front of the green where I was just, I mean, I was barely off. And I was like, there's no way that ball should be there. Like, that ball should be so far left and so short in the rough. Like, it just shouldn't be where it went. And I was like, you know what? There's a reason that I put the T200 in the 5, you know, the 5 and 4 iron, and that's the shot. But on the flip side of that, when you hit it well, you don't feel like, oh God, how far is it going to go? Like, you know, the face is so hot that you're just like, oh great, like if I hit it solid, is it going to go 195 and all of a sudden fly in the green? Like,
I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit about the face design, right? So for this line of irons and this type of construction, we changed the face design to what's called a dual taper face design. So the thickest portion of the face is in the middle, and then what happens is towards the heel and toe, that face tapers to a thinner face thickness at the heel and toe to help with those heel-toe mishits, right? And giving you a little bit more, again, to get that consistent distance on those mishits closer to your center turf shot. And then secondly, I also wanted to mention along the lines of feel, turf interaction-wise, that this iron now has the same variable bounce sole design philosophy in it as well, right? So in the previous T Series line, that was only in T100 and T100S. Now that design philosophy we brought into T200, 350, and also the utility iron as well.
And this is a little narrower sole than previous generation, right? I mean, it seems that way when, you know, just looking at all that, but it does look that it's definitely narrower than the previous T200.
Yeah, I like to say visually it's definitely narrower, this because of the center, right? So the center of the sole, especially on the trailing edge, it's a little bit straighter, right? So that gives it a little bit of a narrower look overall. However, the effective part of the sole versus the previous generation is about the same.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan. I mean, long par threes, that 5-iron and stuff, I've been able to kind of hit it in there. And, you know, like you mentioned, Josh, before, very little roll. I mean, when you go and kind of look at the ball mark, it's right where pretty much your ball is. I mean, there's very little, you know, rollout that you have to worry about. I mean, just overall, I mean, it does help, especially my game, kind of, you know, that blended set. It just works with my swing and needing that little extra height, that little extra, you know, firepower to kind of keep it consistent and give me the ability to kind of hit those longer shots and you know, get away with a bad swing or on a good swing, land soft and just stop. So it's been a really good thing that I've added to that. I'm glad, you know, that I did go with the kind of combo set.
Well, and Brian, you mentioned that it matches up well for your game. Well, it turns out it matches up really well for most people's games. So when we look at touring professionals, about 80% have a mixed iron set. Unfortunately, the opposite is kind of true today in the marketplace, and a lot of that is due to the fact that consumers aren't really hitting anything more than a 7-iron or a 6-iron, depending where they go to get fit. And so they're just saying, all right, well, that's probably where I go, and I don't know if I'm a 4-iron player, if I need a hybrid there or not. And the fitter kind of just makes an assumption. But we really want people to work their way through the bag. That's why we've just created all these long iron packs that we're sending to all our fit teams. Clearly, our fitters have got all the product and tools to be able to work you through that, because everyone's mix set is unique. And that's why we don't do any like pre-combo sets. We want this to be your set of irons, because you will find something different. David Kern, our head of sales, he and I have been doing some media events as well this week. And yesterday I had him go through his bag for a couple of people. So he does 9-iron through 6-iron, or through 5-iron. Let's see, 9-iron through 7-iron T100. 6-iron is T150. 5 iron is T200, and 4 iron is T350. So
Love it.
classic sales guy, he's got them all in there. But it really was how his fitting went. And he's another player who played collegiate golf, years ago. And so he's just looking for how can he continue to play his best now weekend warrior golf. And it's neat to be able to see that everybody's setup is kind of similar in some ways, but different in others.
For sure.
And being like totally biased about irons, I mean, I was over the moon when I heard that we were going to give these long iron fitting packs out to our fitters.
Yeah.
Because that's where really I believe our iron sets separate themselves even more, right? So 7 irons, yeah, absolutely. But when you can hit our 4 iron versus someone else's with our CG placements and our face technology, I think it really separates themselves, in the height that you can get and that stopping power we were talking about.
Yeah, and I think it does. It reinforces. Like, I've always been a combo set guy. I've always liked the idea of mixing and matching irons to figure out what you need. But I know there's a lot of golfers who don't get that crazy into it. And if their fitter can kind of suggest it and then hand them the club and say, hey, look, hit this, and you can kind of show them, hey, this is what's happening. I think a lot of people will be looking to adopting a combo set for their next one. And then you mentioned, which is a great lead-in, Josh, 350, which I have to say is, I was talking with a guy who works in our office building who has the previous Gen 300, and he loves them. And I was looking at him and looking at these, and I was just like, man, the old 300s, they're great irons, but these do look really, really good. They're, in terms of just looks alone, you guys kind of nailed it with the 350, because it definitely has a great, again, the back badging, really high end, looks really premium. And then overall, again, the shape of the iron, for as well as it performs, it doesn't look like the big offset shovel, as a lot of people call them. It definitely is more compact than you would expect from an iron that hits it this high and this long.
Yeah, we kind of refer to it as it's our ultimate game improvement iron. It's high, it goes far, and it's super forgiving.
Yep.
And Marni's team loaded it up. It basically is like the big brother of T200. So if you peel that thing apart, you're going to find a lot of the same types of technologies in there, and that's what's powering it. But it is incredibly fast versus the prior gen T300, and even more forgiving. And so what we're so excited about with this is going to help any golfer that's out there to really be able to launch it high, hit it far, be very forgiving. But it comes in this package that is beautiful, as you were just saying, Brian, that really stands out in a crowd. And it matches up to the Titleist brand. We want that certain look, that certain feel of all our products. But Marni, sorry, I'm talking too much.
No,
you should tell. This is your product.
No, I mean, I like that. I like where you're going, because I also wanted to talk about how, we've been just kind of tooling around with a long iron out on tour and showing it to players. And actually, Peter Malnati, took one home with them and actually used it in a golf tournament. So, it's got that look to where even a tour player is not going to shy away from it, especially after he sees the performance.
Yeah.
Right? So, looking at this, though, with the name change to 350, the reason for that was really because you noticed, the product looks completely different from where it was. Now it's in this, again, what we call the multi-material hollow max impact construction, right? Versus before, it was a one-piece cavity back max impact construction.
Yeah.
So really, there's major change to the construction of this iron. It now is drafting off of a lot of the technologies that we're using in T200 as well, right? So we've got the dual taper forged L face in there. We've got the max impact technology in there in the same configuration as the T200, which now has the core support bar that runs from top line down to that lower rear sole, and we cover the whole thing with the muscle plate on the back as well. And all the same types of learnings that we had with T200, we applied to T350 as well, with slight tweaks to kind of the stiffness and the ribbing within the medallion, because the head is larger, right? So the frequencies are going to be slightly different. So we tried to do what we could to tweak this back into the preferred feel zone, given this size of head. And so you'll find all the technologies in here are very similar to T200. Makes an easy story, right? Between the face, the muscle plate, the max impact technology, the dual high density tungsten weighting, which is new in this category as well. We only had a singular tungsten weight in the T300, but this iron versus the others, it does have a marked performance difference in terms of improvement versus the other irons in the line, in that it does launch higher, it is faster across the face. It's definitely a more forgiving iron than the previous one. So it's something that we feel like everyone should try this iron if you're looking for max distance with forgiveness.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. It's like he's handled this a little bit or something.
yeah.
And that's what I mean. This was one that in terms of on my radar when I kind of did my fitting, it wasn't the highest, but I did want to hit it. And it was near the end of the day. I was starting to get a little tired, whatever. And it was amazing how, like I said, the mishits on this, how high, how straight, and how far they really go. Because it seemed like you could kind of hit it anywhere on the face, and you were going to get a pretty good result out of it. Even if you were kind of stretching it to how far out on the toe or how low heel you could hit it, you weren't getting penalized with low kind of bullets out there. Everything still got in the air. It still went pretty straight. It was pretty amazing. And there was a gentleman who started hitting balls, kind of in the stall next to me, and he kind of noticed the same thing because they handed him a 350 and started hitting it, and we both kind of just said, like, this is kind of amazing. It just goes straight in the air, it goes forever, and it just wants to go straight. Like, it doesn't want to do much else. And again, I think the feel portion of it, it's a good feeling iron. I think a lot of people, when they get into an iron that's extremely forgiving and long and all that, they kind of understand, hey, I'm going to sacrifice the feel, or I'm going to sacrifice the look, or whatever. And with this, you don't really have to sacrifice much. It's all pretty much there, just like the 200, the 150, and the 100. You're going to get good feel out of it, good sound, and you're still going to get that performance.
Yeah, and I like to emphasize in products like 200, 350, and U505 that are high COR type products, that our platform with the heel-toe tungsten, the high-density weighting, that high level of MOI that we put into each of these designs, it's really important with these types of constructions to really try and maximize the MOI of the club in order to take advantage of the face you put in, right? So if your head is not stable and it's twisting on that off-center hit more, right, you're not going to return as much energy into that face that you've designed, and therefore you're not going to get that consistent distance that we're all looking for. So I'd like to say, with our platforms, with the heel-toe high-density tungsten weighting, coupled with our face designs, we do it better than most.
Yeah, no, it was really impressive, and the funny thing is, the guys, doing the fittings, all the Titleist guys were super excited about this iron. They wanted to put it in everybody's hand just to try it. Hey, even though it may not be what you're looking for, give it a shot. See what it see the ball flight, see how easy it is to hit, and they were handing it to everybody, and everybody that I saw that hit it was pretty impressed with what it did, which was pretty cool. Because usually, you sit there and the blades, the player stuff is what everybody gets excited about. To see those fitters pretty excited about handing 350 out to players was pretty cool. And then you mentioned, the utilities, the new U505 and the T200 utility, both. This year, like you said, last year, we saw tons of what's in our bag coverage, tons of T200 utilities. Yeah. And it seemed like, so many people had them. And now we're seeing, again, we had it last year, but again this year, a good, really solid look. What's the difference in this head to a T200 head for the utility? Is it just a build difference, or what's kind of the difference between, doing this route, the utility build, or just ordering a T200 3iron?
It's primarily a build difference, but also there is a loft difference between a utility 4-iron and a 4-iron in the set, right?
Okay.
So because the utility builds typically are built in mixed sets with T100s, CBs, and MBs, this loft of the utility build is at 23, which fits better with those other products, versus the 4-iron in the set is at 21, which fits better with that set progression to give the gapping that we're looking for in that. build.
The other key change we see, Brian, is when we go to utility builds, we prefer to put in a hybrid graphite shaft.
Yep.
That's what the best players in the world are using. And so we make sure that we've got our head weights correct to be able to get you the swing weights we're looking for in going that route. So those are really kind of the key differences. You can still get a utility build with a steel shaft, whether you want a 505 or a T200. We still make that available. But our preference is to go hybrid graphite. Again, that player is typically looking for a little more speed. They're looking for a little bit more launch, and that shaft really helps them. So the one you're holding up right there is 4th gen hazardous black. I think on your other hand, maybe I saw a graphite design.
Yep, that would be the 505 with a little graphite design IZ.
Exactly.
I think it's the 95. This one was pretty interesting because they, to me, I'm not a guy who hits it super. I hit kind of a flatter ball. So, a U505 3 iron is not something that's typically on my radar. I'm a hybrid 7-wood type player when we get into the top end of the bag. But, and I kind of said that to my fitter, and he goes, no, you got to try it. He goes, just go hit it. And he's like,
good
just
for
hit
him.
it. Yeah, exactly, and it was pretty impressive. I was really shocked at how easy this is to elevate, because I think when you see this online, you may think, oh, it's a driving iron, it's built for the Open Championship and hitting it low and driving these little bullets down the fairway. You can hit this off the fairway, hit it high, and land it soft into greens. It was very surprising to me on how playable this really is.
Yeah, it's a very versatile club. We have some tour players like Ben On who use even the 1 iron, right? So he uses a 1 iron in place of a 3-wood. He doesn't even carry a 3-wood. And he carries it like 260 yards, which is just amazing to watch.
A little north of that, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's a club that's very versatile. You can hit it high, you can knock it down. And that's by design, right? So the CG is further back, which allows you to, like, if you are closing that face down and de-lofting it, that CG, because it's pretty far back, it goes up pretty quickly. So you're able to now get that low trajectory. But if you shallow it out, that CG gets really low, and you're able to hit it way up in the air, especially if you've got one of these hybrid shafts in it as well.
Yeah, Brian, we obviously read a ton on Golf WRX, and I know there's a pretty big community that believes they should be playing hybrids. They just hate hybrids.
Yeah.
And so that's really where this product came from, was, hey, we want to give you hybrid-like performance, but for a lot of hybrid players, they're nervous when they see that face progression. They start thinking that's going to get going left pretty quick on them. And so they want that flat face approach that Marni and team have built in here with this iron shape. And then with this really wide sole, as you mentioned, that deep CG, this thing goes a mile in the air.
Yeah,
I mean, it does. Really does. We were just with Ben Taylor the other day, one of our PGA Tour pros, and he was giving a demonstration, hitting each of the different products, and he was doing it in 4 irons. And it was like watching him climb a ladder, right? T100, T150, T200, 350. And then he got to U505, and it was just like, whew, way up there, where everyone in the crowd just went, woo, when he hit it. And so that's what's really neat about this, is that it gives you an opportunity for players who may have had to walk away from an iron at the top end of the bag to bring one back in, which makes Marni very happy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Is the peak height champion. And at our photo shoot that we did as part of this irons launch, the tour players that were there, they took one of these and they started, like, it's like you said earlier, like, they were just like wanting to hit it and see how high they could hit it, and they were like trying to see who could hit it the highest. And I think maybe it was Zalatoris or someone else that hit it like 180 feet in the air, which I was like, oh my goodness, that's high.
That is real high. Yeah, I mean, it's the highest 3 iron I've ever hit, and I know I don't hit a lot of 3 irons anymore in my day, but like I said, I was really shocked, because I really. I wouldn't say I didn't have any interest in hitting. I wanted to hit it, but I had no expectations of being able to, hit a high playable ball with it. I thought it was all going to be kind of those low bullets, and it was really impressive. And you said compared to like a hybrid, it was almost a little harder to turn over. I mean, everything I hit was kind of straight to a little right. I'm a guy who hits it to the left with relative ease. It was a club that didn't want to go hard left on pretty much any swing you put on it. It was straight to, if a little bit right, on almost everything I hit with it. But much more impressive than I thought it was going to be for my swings. I just didn't think it was for me.
Yeah, and then talking a little bit about the technical details for this one.
Yeah.
Again, very similar to 200 and 350 platform in terms of overall construction components, with a couple of differences in that the face is still a forged L-face construction. However, instead of a dual taper for this head, it's a single taper towards the heel only. Right, so this club has a slightly longer blade length than the other two. Or actually a more significant blade length than the other two. And so that extra length, again, when we were looking at the face design and then looking at the performance that we got out of it, it didn't need the taper on the toe, right? So that would just create, a little bit more stress there, and also the numbers weren't coming out where we wanted them to. But by not having that there and just adding it to the heel, we actually got this product to be, dialed in. So it's not like we take the same technology and just apply the exact same thicknesses and everything to every iron, right? It's like each one of these faces is engineered for the specific platform and purpose that it has. It also has the same variable sole design philosophy as the others, but it's a much wider sole, so the bounce angles have been adjusted across that sole versus a 350 versus a 200 versus 150 or 100. Specific for that type of sole.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I was very impressed with it, and it was probably the one club that I was probably shocked the most with. I mean, everything was really good, but that was probably the most shocking, especially at the end when it was just like you were tired. You put in 100 swings, and you were just kind of like, yeah, this thing's going to go 4 feet off the ground, and any poor chipmunk running by is going to be in trouble. But it was pretty impressive how high I hit it, but. Yeah, I mean, the line is super exciting. It's really cool to see everything new. We know it's it's always kind of that 2 years waiting, and it turns into that Christmas. But the whole line is super excited. I will say, now that we're kind of gone through everything, kind of what's in both of you guys, what are you playing? What's in your bags before we go?
I think shockingly similar.
Really? Okay.
So from an iron standpoint, and Marni and I didn't do our fittings together. I'm from 9 iron through 5 iron, I'm T150, and then I go a T200 4 iron.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I cheat on Marni and I move up to fairway woods after that. So I've got kind of a 5 wood, almost set like a 6 wood, a 3 wood, and then I play TSR. Right now I'm playing TSR 2. I much like you, Brian, almost have like a backup bag where kind of float different heads in and out. So I've played TSR 3 for months and months, but right now I'm playing TSR 2, and it seems to be behaving a little better for me, and I'm pretty happy with that. And then on the low end, I actually play a Vokey pitching wedge, so 4610F. I know, Mark, it's okay. It's one big team.
That's right.
And then a 50 F grind as well. Then I do a 54 at 55 degrees D grind, and then a 60 A grind, which I really like. So, and then putt with a fastback 1.5.
Wow, nice.
And then for me, irons, of course, I go from pitching wedge to 4 iron.
Don't make me feel bad.
Well, I'm the iron guy, right? So
Gotta have irons, lots of irons.
I'm still claiming the pitching wedge area of a bag as iron.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
So am I.
Right, so from pitching wedge to 4 iron, I have T150, and then I move up into a 3 iron into T200, which is very specific for my course setup for a couple of par 5s and par 3s that we have there.
You do hit it nice, though.
Yeah, I have to be able to advertise, right?
Marni's got a fancy, no one else has finish on his irons. He's currently testing kind of a smokier finish. As he should, as head of the team. But that isn't one of the things we're always doing, is constantly tweaking and looking at what are some things that we could bring eventually to the lineup. So Marni's got pretty cool looking irons.
Yeah, I always like the black finish, and anytime I get to try and test one out for us. I'm like, absolutely, give me one of those. Let's go. Then step up into my first fairway wood, which is 5 wood, which is the TSR 3 18 degree. Then I go straight to a TSR 2 13.5 degree, because I, like you were saying, I'm not long, right? So on most par 5s, I'm taking that thing and I'm hitting it to try and get close to a green, because I'm usually not reaching greens with the
sandbagging right now. Do not play Marni for money.
No, keep the wallet in the pants.
Yeah.
Then I have a no comment. Then I have a TSR 4 driver 10 degree. And then on the bottom end of the bag, I am a 2 wedge player, so I have the 54 degree S grind, and then I have the 68, like Josh as well, which was recommended to me, which I really love. Having come from a 60K, did you come from a 60K as well?
Yeah, low bounce K.
Yeah, low bounce K. Yeah. So we kind of made that same progression. Interesting. And then I also have I think it's a 2.5 square back.
Yeah,
you got the new Plus model, I think, right?
It's bigger. It's a little bit bigger than the Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great looking putter. I remember seeing those at the PGA show. It's pretty impressive. So, hey, and finish-wise, I'm going to speak for all the Golf to Be Rexers, even though I know it's not raw. That's just I'm going to throw it out there, raw. T100, 150 raw. Yep.
Oh,
throw it out there.
All right, we'll think about that.
They sell terrible at retail because nobody wants to see a rusty iron.
I was going to say, will they buy them with rust on them, right?
No. So they're terrible in a retail store on a shelf, but every Golf to Be Rexer wants raw. So just letting you know, me included. I love raw irons, so I'm a huge fan. But so if you're thinking about finishes, the raw, you won't sell any at retail, but it'll be all right because the Golf to Be Rexers will get them.
We'll offer them only to WRX.
There you go, limited edition. There we go. So, well, listen, gentlemen, I appreciate today. This has been awesome. I know we've gone on forever. I feel like we could, go another hour, but really appreciate breaking down all the brand new T Series models. I think it's going to be a really exciting end of the year into next year for Titleist here. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing people when they get their hands on these, finding out what ones they like, what works best for them, combo sets, all that. It's going to be some exciting stuff here going forward now that everybody gets their hands on them. So thank you again for all the time. Appreciate the expertise, all the knowledge. It was awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brian, and good luck in your big tournament this weekend with all your buddies. I know you got a lot of Titleist clubs in your bag, so hopefully they're going to help you bring home the trophy. Thank you. I don't know if your listeners know, but your Ryder Cup weekend comes with a championship trophy.
Oh,
pretty cool.
It's serious. There's a real trophy. Like last show, I think I spoke about an hour about my 2 bags and what went in, what didn't, why it's in the backup. So yeah, it's I take it way too serious, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, there are the 150s and the 150-200 combo set is it's there, ready to go. So we're rocking with that right out of the gate. So
nice.
It'll be a lot of fun. But awesome. Yeah, I'll try to play my best and make them proud.
Yeah, we look forward to pictures of the trophy. Just send them to us.
All right. Hopefully. So, all right. Thanks again, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Safe travels.